Welcome, everyone. I'm so excited to tell you about this podcast. It's called The DK Project, but it's really The Darren Show. The DK Project is a radio show, but without the radio. So sit back, buckle up, and enjoy the ride.
Let's go!
Welcome back to the DK Project. Hey, everybody, I want to give you a little intro on this one. This is part 2 of the Terry Pernsteiner adventure. He stopped in the other day and we laid down a jumbo episode, so we decided to cut it into a double feature. That's right, 2 for the price of 1. So if you haven't checked out episode 78, that was episode 1, be sure to do that. You know, it's not required, but it may help fill in some of the blanks. Otherwise, without further ado, here's part 2. Enjoy. This episode of the project's brought to you by NRD Landscape Design. If you or someone you know is considering a landscape project, give the good folks at NRD a call. I know it sounds cliche, but no job's too big or too small. They've done several projects at my houses, and I can't say enough. It's the way contracting should be. On time, on budget, no hidden costs. Check them out on the web at nrdlandscape.com or call 952-212-2665. Tell them you heard about it on the DK Project. Now, on with the show. All right. So the question I have is, how was the temperature or the set when you're working a Green Bay game? Or a border battle of whatever state or whatever league you're in. I mean, the Green Bay Viking thing is crazy. We have a gal that comes on. Her name is Sal. Jesus, diehard Vikings, diehard, which is so fun because I did the sports show with Bob Sansevier for a while, and that whole sports world. But the border battle with the Packers, I mean, it's just night and day here. Like Viking people do not like Packer people. And you know, part of it is, I don't know, but I bring this up because the other day I was just talking to Tom, and I'm like, you know, what's really great about this, not just because the kids are at home and whatever, but you don't have to watch the shitty sports. They just put the good ones on. And I tuned in the other day and they had, and my memory's horrible, but the year Favre was here, so they played it was on a Monday night reel, and they played the Monday night game when the Vikings played the Packers, and we had Favre. And you know, we talked so much about Jordan earlier and how great he was at basketball, but Favre was pretty damn good on the field. I mean, that guy, just to see him, and here's a good question. Speaking of, why didn't you give him a fucking jersey that fits? Why did he have that pup tent on? His jersey would have fit somebody 3 times his size.
It's totally, the player gets called that. Dennis Ryan is phenomenal. He's the equipment manager for Vikings. He does whatever the players want. Nike came out, and when Nike started with the jerseys, they're so tight that you can hardly get them on and off. And
well, don't they even glue them onto the pads now so they can't grab them?
Only certain position players that want it, because some guys want it to be slippery and stretch like a quarterback.
Okay.
So he can get that extra. And some guys like receivers, they want to just be tight so they can't grab it.
Right.
And so actually players have their total, and we do whatever the players want. If they want, and they all bring their pads with them team to team to team too. They're custom made pads. And so
they use the same ones every game? I mean,
same ones every game. Like, they smell terrible, and Dennis sends them out once a year or so and gets them cleaned. And they have big ozone box now that helps.
It's got to smell like holy hell in there after a game. Because I know when my 8th grader gets done with a hockey game, that's just putrid. And you're talking about grown men? Jesus.
Yeah, actually, we set out all the most wonderful smelling stuff in the showers, and they come out smelling pretty good. It's just their helmets, because they don't get clean, and their shoulder pads. Everything else gets laundered.
Okay. So that makes sense, though, why Favre's jersey was so big then, because he wanted to be able to move a little even if someone had him.
Well, I'm just speculating on that one, but he calls it. Players call it the way they want it, and then Dennis just does it. So when Dennis fits him,
that was such a great game.
They talk about it, and Favre was so amazing in this respect. He was so intuitive, and by far, I remember one game. Adrian had this phenomenal run. He ran over the guy's back. Do you remember that?
No.
The guy went down. He literally took like 2 or 3 steps on top of the guy and had like a 48 or 60 yard. I don't remember. It was a big gain. And I was standing on the sidelines, and our coordinator at the time was Daryl Bevel, who's with Seattle Seahawks now. And Bev said, hey, Brett, did you hear me calling I think it was like 27, 27? He goes, yep.
Hot route! Red 7, red 7, red 7!
Flip ball.
John!
What?
Red 7!
I don't know what red 7 means.
Hot route!
I don't. What is hot route?
Will you just go stand on the other side, please?
He goes, do you know what that means? He goes, nope. And I thought, wow. And he goes, well, that's a common scenario when tight ends line up and the ends line up this way on the West Coast offense. You'll hear us yelling it. He goes, oh, okay. So I thought, and not only that, but Adrian was not the plan. He was a dump. It was not the plan, but it was this huge gain. Everyone said, wow, that Favre is amazing. And Favre didn't hear the call from the sideline. He heard it, but he didn't know what it meant. He was instinctive. His instincts were so amazing. But what I thought was amazing was he was coachable at the end of his career. Now, Bev's a really great guy, but he listened to Daryl Bevel, and he admitted that he didn't know something that was, as Daryl Bev even said it, this is really common. Bev was so sweet. He didn't mean to talk down to Brett. He's just a sweet guy. He just said, this is really common. West Coast Avenue. You'll hear us do it a lot. And I thought, every player, like you talk about the hockey players and your kids, every player should say, because you know how they get above coaching when they reach a certain level.
Yeah.
And they're not even in the pros yet. And they get a chip on their shoulder. You can see high school players and college players who think they don't need to, they walk away from the coach or something. And it's like, Favre didn't do that at the end of his career. And he got hit the last play when he got hit on the bottom and his chin split open. And the trainers had him on the table back behind the bench, and they were holding a towel on it. And it was just gushing blood like your chin would if it got cut open. It was like an inch long cut or something. And he kept trying to get up. I'm okay. I want to play. Let me in. I want to get. And that's who he was. And I said to him, the next game, we didn't know that, but that was the last game of that play of his career. And that next, he was on IR. We were in Detroit, and I say, Brett, I have a really high pain tolerance. My bicep tore off, and I was just angry. And the athletic trainer for the Detroit Lions, when it happened, kept saying, man, that's the most excruciating thing you could have, because the whole tendon, which is the size of like your pointer finger, when it rips off at once, all those nerve endings tearing off is so excruciating. And I said, well, I don't have any pain. I said, but I think I'm lightheaded. He said, that's your pain. I said, I don't have any pain. I said, I think I'm going to throw up. He said, that's your pain. I never felt a single pain when my bicep ripped. So I said, I got a really high pain threshold. I didn't tell Favre that one, but I said, I've been cut. And I said, but you got like no pain threshold. I have a high one, but you have like no one. And he's like, I think it's just because I'm stupid. And then he walked away. But this guy was the toughest guy you ever saw in your ever in your life on the field. You talk about Dan Marino and all. Well,
didn't he play with a broken ankle there for a bit when
here's a great
Saints
story.
Game or something?
Here's a great story.
I can never remember shit.
He played with everything. I walked in the locker room at the Metro, and he was with the Packers, and he's sitting there. It was way before the game. It was morning. It was like 5-6 hours before the game, and he's not usually there. He came with the first bus, and usually they'll stay at the hotel and get treatment, and they'll come on the last bus, or they'll maybe come earlier and get treatment but they just aren't early, the quarterback especially. And he'll maybe come but he was before the buses. There was like staff came over, and I walk in the locker room, and he's sitting there, and the trainers are looking at me, and they go, hey, do you have any super glue? And I knew that he had broken his thumb the game before. He hit a helmet or something. And I was thinking as a Viking, oh, good, he's not going to play very well. I just went in the Packers locker room to say hi to some guys and some clubbies and stuff, and they said, I said, what for? And they smiled, and I said, they're gonna do something with his thumb. So they took this fiberglass shell of a cast, and they super glued his thumb to the cast. And he had this great game, and they're like, we can't believe he had such a great game with a broken thumb. And I'm like, I know how he did it, but if that would have torn off, it would have taken all his skin and his fingernail. He didn't care. He was a winner. He was like super tough. Now, I know you can take acetone and dissolve it to get it off after the fact, but when you're in a game and if that thing gets ripped off, it's bleeding everywhere. But he took that risk. They took that risk with this super Hall of Fame quarterback and said, we need to beat the Vikings. Apparently that year, it was, a long time ago, but they were in a contested, they got you got to keep the wins going
Yeah.
to get the playoffs. But that's him. That he had do anything to win, anything. And he was a very peculiar guy in a sense that, he was recovering. He had drug addictions and alcoholism.
Was that from the pills or was it before that?
Yes, it was pain pills because they can get prescribed a lot of pain pills because they're in real pain.
Jesus, I couldn't imagine.
So at some point, it's not unhuman to become addicted to some of those super pain pills. So then he has the personality of, he had a hard time one-on-one, but to a group, he was hilarious. So you wonder why he didn't make it in broadcasting because because he actually he's articulate enough. There's a desire thing there too, but there's an interesting personality that again, the sociologist guy in me that likes to just study people, that he had some trust issues too because he had a sense that a lot of people were trying to use him, and I got stories I really can't tell on here, but maybe someday.
Really?
That are really kind of interesting about kind of back to the human side of sports too, because there's more to it. These are very private people, and then they have incidents that happen that are very private inside that, and then you can become trust issues because first of all, everyone's wounded as a child, right?
Yeah.
I talk about Adrian's dad. So we're not talking about most people, actually, even a lot of people's drive comes from, I got to prove it to the world because I have worthiness issues. So it's so convoluted that and there's not time for that. There's just get out there and play. So they just go through life, and maybe when they're our age, that their marriages tremble or something weird happens, that they have to go and do counseling with family origin stuff and all that kind of stuff that goes back and figures out why you're behaving the way you are.
Right.
But so there's some of that, and then you add, addiction. A lot of times, addiction has many bases too, not just chemical. It's from the wounds. So I'm saying this thing's not I can't tell you about Brett. I just know that he was super tough, and he was private, and there was a real sense of he was super frugal.
Really?
Frugal. Like he wasn't going to make another penny, and he was broke. So there was this weird dynamic about, he was one of the most frugal players. He probably has the first dollar he ever made.
Really?
Yeah. So again, really interesting stories that I shouldn't be telling right now. But
do you get a sense from that with those guys? I mean, and I don't mean this to Brett, but do you get a sense to these guys that like, I'm still playing football? Like, I mean, you're still playing a child's game. You know what I mean? Like, like a baseball player.
Look at Marino. Look how he turned into a kid and slugged me, and I ran up.
But I just think it's so weird. I'm 30 whatever.
40.
And I'm still playing.
He was 42 or something, right?
Still playing football. Like I attribute it to like the AD at the school. Like you were in high school, you went to college, you got out of college, you were a teacher. After a teacher, you were in the head office, then you went to being an AD. It's like you've never left school.
Great analogy.
Like there's a world out there for work and but you're still in school. Like you still hear the bell every 54 minutes.
Let's talk about coaching. A lot of ex-players end up in coaching.
Yeah.
I asked them, I said,
like they may not just, maybe they don't know that world and they don't want to leave. That's their comfort
part
spot,
of it.
And
there's a camaraderie. I asked our color guy, our radio guy, Pete Bursich. I said, Pete, what is it? He's like, I can't explain it. He went from player to
he was a coach for a while
to now he's in broadcasting. But he's like, there's a camaraderie. There's this camaraderie and fraternity. I just can't leave. And I asked coaches, I say, you don't need to. How about this story? So who was the who's the coach that walked out in the middle of the season? He was our head coach's buddy. Oh my gosh.
I don't know. For the Vikings?
Yeah. He was
left in the middle of the season?
Yeah, he was a quarterback out in Oregon, and oh man, why can't I think of his name?
I'll put her in the Googler.
Google it. Well, anyway, let me tell you a story.
Google that shit.
We were in Green Bay, and we stayed in Appleton, and we were in the restaurant.
Vapor Valley.
Yep. And there was the Oregon game was on, and and I went up and, gosh, I can't believe I can't remember his name. But I sat down next to him and I said, hey, man, want to share a dessert? Because it's just hilarious. They got Fred Flintstone portions there. They got this steak that sticks way out past the plate. It's like the one that tips over the Fred Flintstone vehicle. And you can't, no one person can eat this much. And I said, so I was joking with him because a strawberry shortcake is this big. It's a full.
George Edwards?
No, not George. He's great. But I almost had it. But anyway, they're like 12-inch around strawberry shortcakes for one person. 12 inches around and like 6 inches high. It's like a comedy. So, and they put that in front of you. And so I was joking with him, hey, you know, I think they need bigger portions here or something. And he said, he said, you know, where I grew up, Norv Turner.
Is that who it is?
Yeah. So you know Norv? Norv's most beloved coach. He was head coach. He's done so much coaching, right? Norv Turner. Just a great human being.
Didn't come up on the Google.
So I said, Google him once.
So he's not known for that.
Norv Turner. So I said, hey,
I see what
he
you
said,
did there.
I grew up on the poor side, the dock side of Oakland. And he said, my dad, I don't remember if he died young or left, but he said, my mom worked 2 jobs to feed me and my brothers. We never had a meal just for one person as big as they are here for our Thanksgiving or Christmas.
Jeez.
So he said, I went to bed hungry all the time. So I said, Norv, I bet you still think that way, don't you? He said, yes, I do. I still think I'm going to be hungry. I'm not going to have enough. So the childhood thing never leaves you. So Norv, because I said, Norv, he was head coach. He made millions. He doesn't need to be coaching. He doesn't need to be on the 100-hour work weeks like they do with film and meetings and travel.
They just want to be in that environment.
They want to be in the environment. Norv said, so I said, he just was a great human being. So their past never leaves them. So if they're a player and they grew up poor, they can act it, but their mind, that's how humans are. There was an executive when General Mills got bought by that English company, that when I was young, I was a mover, and he ran this big division here, and he grew up in a family in Europe, like for 1,000 years they had a mill, and now he's got this job that paid him probably $3 to $5 million a year or whatever, and he was a CEO, and I said, let me ask you a question. I said, you still think of yourself as that little boy on the mill, don't you? In the mill, and he said, he had a long pause. I said, that's your identity, isn't it? Long pause, and he said, yes, it is.
Wow.
I said, that's how humans are. We don't arrive and change our identity. We deal with what we are today with always the bigger map or the bigger structure of where we came from and who we were. And so that's been the question that I've asked a lot of people, and that's the bottom line. So Norv was the same way. Players the same way. Favre, going back to that point, he grew up in Louisiana, very poor area. Now just has a normal, modest place. Yeah, it's nice, but it's a pole shed with lawnmowers. He likes mowing his lawn. We don't leave where we are. So his frugalness
He's going to have a shit ton.
A gob of money.
Yeah.
He does not need anything. And in off air, I'll tell you some stories that you'll just die laughing at because he was that frugal. And
Really?
so it's like, so people's personality, and then you bring all these personalities in one team.
That would explain the Wranglers.
Brett Favre, football legend.
I've tried all kinds of jeans. Button fly, zipper fly, you name it. But for me, nothing works better than the all-new open fly jeans from Wrangler.
Introducing the first open fly jean from Wrangler. The first jeans with no fly whatsoever.
Wrangler open fly jeans feature an ultra-relaxed fit right where you need it most. The fly. Why let zippers and buttons slow you down? With open fly jeans, it's always out and camera ready.
Yeah, exactly. Totally. Because that's high class right there. And so that's his Sunday going to meeting clothes. And so, so anyway.
How interesting. But I got to think that's pretty normal. A lot of these guys, but I guess if you look at it from an outside perspective, you could walk out the door and swing a cat and you're going to hit 10 people who want to would love to be in that position, would love to be in that, front office or in the announcer's room or.
That's so true.
However, so I guess if you could just say, hey, I'm going to stay on to be an announcer, a lot of people can do it. Some people.
No, I don't think so. It's so demanding.
Well, I've done, you know what though? I did, our local high school team. I announced for our local team.
Yeah.
I do soccer, basketball, and I was supposed to do baseball this year again, but.
How much time a week is that for you?
It's not bad,
What's not bad?
If it's a 2-game week for whatever sport, it's probably 6 hours, 8 hours.
Do you know how few people want to give up 6 or 8? 8 hours. That's a work day.
Well, and
so you gave up a Saturday or Sunday equivalent of what society says, hey, I got my weekends off. You're making a sacrifice that because you like doing it or for whatever reason.
No,
but you're really making a sacrifice that if you, a lot of people could say, I could do 8 hours for a season, but you'll do it year after year after year. That's the difference.
Well, and I think, the reason why I bring it up is because our baseball team, the last year my son played, so whatever year ago, we got to go down to the U at Siebert Field, and they're like, hey, you want to announce? And so they put me in the booth with the big mic and the shit that's just tuned to me.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm telling you, I found my spot. It was so, and it sounded so awesome because it's like, here at the high school field, it's just some shit equipment that they threw together that you can't do anything with. But you get there and it's like, whoa, I could see that.
It's EQ to you, baby.
Man, wow. It felt good. It was really, it was a fun experience. And just for, and you don't get that feeling on most of these, but I get a lot of feedback. I get a lot of people that are like real happy because I have a lot of fun with it. I'm naturally there to entertain. Oh yeah. And I'll announce too. Because it's kind of my, it's always been my thing to be on the radio or to entertain people. And this has given me an avenue, but then you put that in front of me where it's like, this is what it should sound like. It's like, you just keep reaching for that. So I think a lot of these sports people, they've had that taste of that whole world where, and it's not even so much they want the fame and the fortune and whatever, but it's just that thing they love to do. They love to get out there, and you got to get more of it. So if I can't get out on the field and I gotta wear a suit and be in the front, I'll do that.
But it's easy for you, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
See, that's it. That's the difference.
It's natural.
Do you know how many people, greatest fear of all society is public speaking, right? And so you're like, give me more of that. So Paul Allen, he's a genius, but he's a genius that just does that. He doesn't even know what he's doing. He just shows up and does it, right? So Paul, like I asked Paul and Pete, I say, especially Pete, because he was a player and a coach. I said, Pete, this is like nothing for you, isn't it? He's like, yeah. It's like having a conversation with someone.
Well, and that Paul Allen, great story, started off because of Jesse the Body. Full circle back to the beginning of the show. Jesse the Body got to be governor. So him and Jeff Dubé took over that radio show.
Was that how he started?
And that's how this happened. That's how he is where he is.
He called the track, though, before that.
I think he's called the track the whole time, I think.
Because he said, he remembered back in San Francisco when he had a little apartment, he'd walk down to the track and call it, and then walk back and having, just partying. And that was his simple life. And so it was just like walking for him, calling the track. And so as he gets into, he's got this encyclopedic mind that he was born with again.
He's so good at that football, though. I mean, the Viking thing.
Shotgun, Dalvin Cook to his left. 3rd and goal from the 4. Kirk takes the snap. Looks right. Fade left. End zone. And it is caught. Touchdown! Bonjour, San Francisco. And au revoir, New Orleans Saints.
But he's as insecure as any other human being. Terribly insecure, just like everyone else.
I don't know. I was at a steakhouse 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and ran into his wife, then wife.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was interesting.
And
I think there's probably a maintenance package that goes along with that. Because he went from like like the night guy at the station, I think, to Pierre Dubé had that show.
It devastated him when
it
Dubé
just
went down with
blew
drug
up.
addiction. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't figure that kid
back
out.
Back then on the plane, on the Vikings plane, I say, Paul, how you doing with all this travel? Your wife? And he goes, she's okay with it. The kids are really little, and what do you do? How does she deal with all these weekends? Because it's me too. I work 7 days a week, and I had a good wife who accepts it. But he goes, I just sent her up to the lake place. Well, shortly after that, they got divorced. So there's tension in that kind of demanding schedule.
Oh, I could only imagine.
And, when you saw her, she had it. And you sure can get it, because I remember Monty Kiffin. Monty Kiffin, we hired him as a coach from the Jets. And I had a moving company when I was young. And Monty came and he said, hey, Terry, you got to do something for me. I said, what's that, Monty? He said, she's going to leave me. I said, how do you know that? She told me straight up, you do this again, I'm leaving you. So I said, is she serious? He goes, she's dead serious this time. Keep her happy, Terry. Do whatever you got to do to keep her happy. I said, I got that, Monty. And he said, I'm doing everything I can. I moved back to her old neighborhood. She's around all her old friends. I got it. Because since then he went off to like 5 different cities and coached, but she left her in her old neighborhood. So there's a pressure that is on these spouses that I can't tell you.
Well, and I bet a lot of it too is and the PA Paul Allen side, and Kiffin, I think the spouse doing what they absolutely love to do and excelling at it to a very high level, if not the highest level.
Yeah.
And you're the wife or you're the husband of the person who's excelling, and you're just normal. And I think that's a very hard world to live in, because you see a lot of that where they're like, the spouse will be wanting to do normal shit, and you're like, I'm operating at a very high level.
Yes and no.
Not even ego.
Not in Paul's case, because Paul is just too recognizable in this market.
Somebody told me his kid's going where my kid goes to college.
Yeah, so because his girlfriend now, or to-be wife, she's great, Lisa, fantastic. I love Lisa, and she's great with it. But she travels a lot. She's a flight attendant, and so she actually goes to a lot of the games, and she doesn't come.
I think that's a big part of it. That's a big part of it. That would happen with Howard Stern.
Oh yeah,
with his first wife, where you're like, we started off as normal people together, and now I'm here. And I don't care if people say you don't have an ego, you don't have that. They do. I mean, you do. You know that you're at the top of the food chain, and then you got to go back to your wife or your husband, whichever the scenario is. But they're living normal. You're not living normal anymore.
Yes and no. I'll say
Really?
the no part because I'm around it all the time, and I know Paul really well. And the truth is, Paul and anyone like him, I don't care how famous they are, they know they want the same things everyone else does. So they want to go home and chill. They want to they want privacy for one, but they don't want anything different than you want. So how do you do that and yet be famous? That's where it gets tricky. That's where you have to personify. It looks like they might have ego when in fact all they want is privacy. And so Paul can't go anywhere in this market now. And he goes anywhere else, no one knows who the hell he is.
Yeah.
So I tell him, hey, Paul, you're a minor celebrity. The truth is he is.
Right.
He's a celebrity in this market, end of story. He's not Brett Musburger and all these other guys that show up in, John Elway's. And when they show up, they have a completely different persona because there's a level of guardedness that they need so they can maintain their basic humanness. And that doesn't mean they're a prick. They just have to not talk to everyone because no one's got it in them. It's that James Taylor thing. He said, everyone should be famous for 15 minutes to know they don't want to be famous.
Right.
I love traveling with the team and being a nobody because I can go in and out of the hotel and everywhere, and I just get to see the city and do whatever. They can't. And the bigger they get, I remember we were in the Chiefs had Joe Montana as a quarterback and David Craig as a backup quarterback, and David Craig, the year before, because I traveled with them back then, it's when they were in River Falls during their camp. And David Craig was the greatest. He was at Oakland Raiders for a long time. Never got hurt. He was just Hall of Fame career. Just a phenomenal specimen. At the end of his career, his body looked like an 18-year-old. He'd eat hot dogs and junk food. He just was one of those guys who just, dietary bull crap. He ate whatever he wanted.
Really?
And he was just a stud. And then Joe comes around, and it was horrible.
Where did he end up, David Craig?
At the Chiefs, and then he retired, I think.
Really?
That was his last.
God, that name seems familiar.
You'll Google him. He had a tremendous rushing career. But when Joe came in, Joe now was a big fish, and David loved it. No one wanted David Craig anymore. They kind of did. They wanted his autograph. But we were in the lunch we traveled to scrimmage in La Crosse, which were Ditka coached the Saints, and we spent 2 days there just scrimmaging the Saints with the Chiefs. And my buddy, the equipment manager, Mike, said, "Hey, you want to go out with Joe and Dave?" And I said, "Yeah." So Joe Montana and I, here's a great story I'll tell you now, actually. This is a great one. So in the dorm, my roommate was a kid who went to La Crosse. He was a wrestler, and he went out with some of his old buddies from town. And I went with Joe Montana, David Craig, and a couple of equipment staff. And we went up to this place on the hill. At the time, it was called the Alpine or something. Now it's something else, but it's way up on the bluff. And no one knew Joe Montana there, which was great for Joe. And Joe couldn't go anywhere, right? Because my previous stories, we were coming out of the lunchroom, and somehow the security guys snuck him out of the back doors. They just decided to take him out the back door. We're coming out the front, and people are sprinting to the back to see Joe. Like, how did they even know? It's just, it was like bloodhounds after a deer that's wounded. It was sad. It was just, I felt so bad for Joe. So when we went out that night, no one knew him. It was great. We sat and I'm like, no one came up to him. There were a couple of people up there, and they didn't know who Joe Montana was. And then this will evolve into a great story. But then Nick Lowry was the highest paid kicker. He shows up with Baxter, whoever their punter was at the time, and they start shooting pool. And the highest paid kicker almost gets in a fight because he's flirting with this girl, and this strong farm boy was going to beat him up, and we're just laughing because how stupid is this guy? He's going to end this expensive kicking career because he's got some goofy drunk pride going on. So we were sitting there entertained, and Joe had money in his pocket. It was $30,000. He called it money. My wife didn't know, because way back then he was making $72 million a year with endorsements.
Jeez.
He was the highest paid guy in the league. And just a great guy.
And that was what, 20 years ago?
Yeah, just a great human being. You'd sit here, and he was just a regular guy. Didn't like the whole fame thing. And so I was like, "Hey, Joe, want to shoot some pool?" And he's like, "Nah, I suck." So I'm like, David Craig's from Wisconsin, which is where I grew up. And I said, "Hey, David, you want to shoot pool?" He goes, "Yeah." He runs the table on me. I sit down with Joe. I said, "I'm out." I didn't get one shot. So David kept running the table, and Joe, we're sitting there, and Joe bought our beer. We didn't have to pay for the beer. And so Marty Schottenheimer, the head coach, shows up with a few other coaches, and they take another high top. And curfew was 11 o'clock at the time, and still is. But he said, and the fine back then was like $1,600 to break curfew. Now remember, Joe made $72 million with $30,000 in his pocket. And so $1,600 is like what? Flipping 50 cents to the barista here. And so Marty's like, "Hey, Joe, you got curfew," and David, and they're like, yeah, okay, see you, coach. So they leave, and we stayed there, and then we ended up running around with the coach and the doctors and stuff, and we stayed out till 3:30 in the morning, and we had a lot of fun. So I get back to the dorm, and I talked to Herman, the German who's guarding the door. He was their security guard, and "Hey, Herm," and Herman, the German, had a flat top ex-Marine. He was serious, and Herm loved catching guys on curfew. And that was his game, because it was his responsibility.
He's getting cut of the 1,600.
Probably. And so I talked to Herm for like 20 minutes. I liked Herm. I go to bed. My roommate's not there yet. I go to bed at 3:30 or 4 o'clock. And I go, I wake up in the morning, and this my roommate, the kid's holding his head going, "Man, I can't believe what I did." I said, "What'd you do?" He goes, "I get in late." I said, "Yeah, you did. You weren't here when I got in." And it was like 4:30 or something he got in, and I said, "What happened?" He said, "Well, I was coming in the door, and the dorms in La Crosse had the there's some bushes, and then it had this concrete little outcrop for rain over the steps, just a straight ledge out. And he said there were two guys in the bushes, and I knew right away who the two guys were, Montana and Craig. And they were drunk. And I go, what'd they want? They said, hey, can we climb on your back and jump up on that ledge and then knock on a player's window and they get beat curfew, which again meant nothing monetarily.
Right.
It was a game. So Joe's at the end of his career and he's still a kid. And so he does it. And I said, man, he's drunk too. But this kid was arrested, like I said, so he's strong. So they climb on his back, climb on the ledge, tap, and they get in and I'm like, if that would you had the starter and the backup quarterback on your drunk back and they're drunk, do you realize you'd never be around the NFL if something happened? You think that the deflate gate's bad with Brady? This should be way bigger news. And so I'm then in the morning I go down to have breakfast. I'm sitting with Herman the German, thinking I know this, and I go, oh man. And Ditka walks up. Hey, you guys see Marty? I said, no. What do you need him for, Coach? She's like, we got tea time. I'm thinking, I'm not saying anything. I don't know where he is. I'm thinking, there's no way Marty's going to play. He was out with us till 3:30 in the morning, and we all drank a little bit too much. And I'm thinking, this NFL stuff's crazy. And so so what was the idea with Joe? I was going to say that. But anyway, he got away with it. And it was like, it was just hilarious because
they're just normal kids. Want to have fun, want to get nuts. That's just crazy. That whole atmosphere, though, in those dorms and that life, that's just got to be. I mean, like I said earlier, with the amount of people that would give their right arm to just be in that environment, and obviously it's your thing. You do it all the time, no big deal. But
it was a big deal then. I was quite young.
I was going to say that's a while ago.
Yeah.
But but a lot of them, I got to imagine, have just become normal with dealing with trying to be normal in a not so normal environment, and when you put them in the dorms at spring come on, that's got to be awesome. That's got to be just chaos at its best because they all have enough money to do whatever the hell they want.
It was a concern for the coaches, as you can imagine. Oh, years later, I saw Herm. We went to play in Arrowhead in Kansas City. And I said,
the security guy?
Yeah, I said, Herm, I never couldn't tell you this. He retired by then. It was like literally 20 years later. I said, Herm, I got to tell you what happened. He's like, oh my God. He said, I'm glad I didn't know. I would have died. I said, yeah. I sat next to you at breakfast. I didn't know what to do.
Unreal. So you're there the whole time. You're involved with everything? That's not anymore. That was then.
Yeah, I don't want to do camp. It's endless hours. When the season starts, I go on the road with them.
Yeah. Very cool. Yeah, that whole thing with Paul Allen and those guys who go into the broadcasting and seeing that side of it, it's crazy. It's a lot of fun, and it's just a different world.
PA got his wings clipped. We were in Chicago. We lost, and he got so passionate. He acted like a fan on air. Do you remember that?
No, well, but I have I don't remember anything.
But I remember this because the owners even got down on him, and I said, Paul. He felt really bad the next week. He didn't know what to do. How do you, he didn't know he misbehaved. He's just passionate.
Yeah.
So I said, Paul, one thing is, the very gift you have, the reason that they like you on air around here on radio is because you're authentic. You say it. You're going to be offensive. And there's nothing wrong with passion. So my suggestion to you is don't change a bit.
Yeah.
Because if you start trying to be who you aren't, you won't be a good broadcaster.
No. Well, that gets back to what we were saying. When you're being forced to read other people's stuff or do things that aren't normal to you, it doesn't seem as authentic, and people will pick up on that right away. Because damn, you could just feel the passion when that dude's doing the games.
He's authentic.
Oh, it's crazy. I don't care much for his radio thing because that's kind of
it's a shtick.
It's a shtick. And who's really bad is, in my opinion, I know people that love him, is that Common Man. People love that guy. I can't listen to it.
I can't either.
And I imagine if I did turn it on, it'd be the same shit it was 15 years ago when I did listen.
It does. And he's got the biggest following.
I don't understand
I've never been part of it either.
It's really a different thing, but that just goes to show you there's listeners out there for everything.
Well, let's go back to the initial. There's this kind of started up about the border battle.
Yeah.
So there's a reason sports exists.
Keep blowing the snap on my pants.
Yeah,
Jesus.
I told you.
The Pandy 15. Damn it.
I didn't know those depends stretch that much.
Jesus.
But there's sports serve a purpose in society that is, it's entertainment. But the players don't care about the money when they're playing. It's blood, sweat, and tears. They leave it on the field because, honestly, they could break their neck any play. These are not guys that are just out there to get it through the season. Every play is they're the Dan Marino thing, slamming the phone down. These are the killer's instinct of society. You don't get where they get the Junior Seau intensity. You don't get to that level if you don't have some way of putting your efforts so intensely into your physicality that you excel to all the others that are right there almost with you. So there's the real side of the bleeding on the field. Then there's the side when they got to face the media and they got to pretend to say all the right things. And then there's the mom, kid, dad side of their life. And then there's the philanthropy side and, the great things they do with hospitals and stuff, like number 82 for us. And, and so they have all these dimensions to their life, but they're still just guys. But then there's the real purpose, to your point about the border battle, is simply because people, they get into ruts with their life. Jobs become mundane. Even challenging jobs become quite manageable. And then they need water cooler talk. They need to have a distraction. So sports serve a great purpose in society, and that is simply as a distraction. So much so that the TV contracts are that monumental. So much so that there's a guy from the front office, and he texted me saying, what's going to happen this season? I said, I don't know. What do you think? And he said, I think we might be playing to empty stadiums. And which will be horrible because the language on the sidelines is really bad. They're gonna. I was talking to a guy from United, the soccer. They're gonna do that, and he said that they're gonna mute out the sideline and only have the broadcaster voices. The broadcast should be the only thing you hear because you can't hear what the players are saying because you don't want to hear what the players are saying, and the coaches. So it's like it's gonna be really weird. But you see. The contracts will even get bigger for TV because people want to check out. That's why movie business has been so big. Remember in the Great Depression, movies just surged because it was their way out of their troubles. Sports isn't much different. So then people
are so hungry for sports right now. Like and even me, and I wouldn't even call myself a sports fan, but
same here.
Generally that's what I'll watch on TV. Like it just gives you something to like tune out but it's not there. And it's like, they're talking about running a NASCAR race here pretty soon.
I heard it's going to happen.
Which, you can social distance with that, but I don't know. Will we play football? I don't know. Can they play? They can play baseball. I mean,
they were talking about sequestering the baseball players.
Well, I think that's over the top. I understand that it's bad, but I also am of the mindset that I think it's leveled off enough to where we can go back to somewhat normal living. But like you said, I haven't had a direct contact death or someone come down with it. But I do think that we can't stay like this forever. We have to, because you're going to start getting the other side of it where people are going to start reacting to the lack of action on the normal part. Like people are going to get weird because they can't, there's a lot of people struggling financially and blah, 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 blah. But we need that sports to take us out of the world we're living in. That's why it's so popular normally.
PTSD is going to actually be now spreading through regular society because the stress that some people have about finances.
Yeah.
And because men are terrible about our identity becomes what we have and what we do. And so men will struggle probably worse than women. But it's going to become rampant. And so it goes back to society determining what's the value of a human life. Is it physical health, or is it a societal economics? And that's being disputed now vehemently. But I'm really curious to see where it'll land. And ironically, the Constitution says all the states have their own power, but then there's this thing where Washington gets to say. So that's even a funny kind of talk about governors making their calls, and then is the federal kind of try. So it's become a really.
Well, Georgia's loose. They're like back open now. Their restaurants opened Monday. I haven't heard anything. I try not to watch the news. I don't.
Same here, actually.
I don't want to hear it. I'm in my own little zone, in my own little world, and I don't often even like to bring it up on the show but it's so hard to avoid. It's like the elephant in the room because you don't have sports. You don't have, so it's difficult. But do I see us going back to playing sports in the fall? I do. I think sports with no fans is a different sport because there's a lot of energy, and you probably know it more than anyone being on the field.
For real.
There's a lot of energy there that drives these people.
Yeah.
Where if you're just kind of, at a dance and there's no one else there, you're
absolutely right.
It's kind of weird.
And you know how you see it? I've seen it Monday Night Football. Players step up. When we go to Green Bay, they're so enamored with the stadium and playing in Green Bay. A lot of these young players have always wanted. You hear them saying it. You watch them walk out, and they're like, "Wow, this is I've always wanted." You hear that. There's a real dynamic to what you're saying. If they go home where they grew up, new energy.
Yeah.
They go to the team that cut them. New players are just they can't show up as much as they have more intensity maybe than general society. They're human, and they can only turn it on so high. And there have been some like Michael Jordan's who have always had the ability to turn it to maximum. But he's an anomaly. That most of them are just guys who.
And he's not getting tackled every day.
I beg to differ on that
every Sunday.
So this guy, a Viking photographer, said, "Hey, will you come down to the Target Stadium or Target Center and man a camera?" I said, "Yeah, I'm a photographer. I love photography." But I didn't have to shoot. It was a remote control camera, but I had to sit out on the field way in front of the cameras. And the only way the NBA let a camera down there to get that shot is if someone manned it. So when the players came, you could pick it up. So I'm sitting out there right underneath the basket. And every time the players come, I'd pick it up and they'd step over me. And then they'd run into the camera. You couldn't get closer because the NBA said this is as close as a human's allowed. But
did Rodman kick you? Did he kick you?
No one kicked me. But I witnessed the physicality of a tight end. There was this one play. I don't remember who we were playing, Golden State. I did this. I only did it for one game, and we had I can't remember players, but there was a big Ukrainian guy. He was a 7-footer, 6'11" or something, and monstrous. Those guys weigh, even if they're skinny, are over 300 pounds just because they're just so big, and so our player. I can't remember what happened, but he got his legs taken out. He's on the ground. When you take a guy who's 6'4", 6'6", legs out, they're falling from 6 feet. Damn. And they land on the hardwood. And I'm sitting on the hardwood and it's just shaking. Man. And I'm seeing their faces and their elbows hit and their knees hit. And I'm going, I didn't know that basketball was like football.
Oh yeah.
And the guy was laying there because he got taken out hard. And the big Ukrainian steps on his head, pivots down court and pushes off his head. And I'm sitting right in front of his head. I'm going, this guy, I'm looking at it. And then all of a sudden the play's at the other end. Finally, he can't even get up. Then they call a foul on him. But I'm like, you got no idea what just happened. That wasn't a foul. This guy should be taken to the hospital. This monster who weighs 300 pounds just stepped on his head. Not only stepped on it, pivoted and pushed off. And
Unreal.
I'm like, I walked away from that game saying, I give up. Basketball is as physical as in the inside game is elbows, and they're getting beat up.
Well, you see a good depiction of that in that Michael Jordan, that Last Dance thing when they played the Pistons. The Pistons were notorious for just being brutal and dirty, punching and elbowing, and you never even think about it. But like if you're under the net and Shaq's coming down on you. Come on. We're
talking not coming down. He knows you're there and he's leading with his elbow. And all he has to do is accelerate his arm a little bit and use his bottom velocity. And he just about knocked you out. Oh. And you're supposed to turn down court and defend this is a game that I had no idea. But because even in a front row, I had really close seats before and you don't see it. But sitting on the court and feeling that.
You were feeling it, yeah.
And seeing it like, literally 3 feet in front of you, I'm like, this is insane. This is a sport that these guys should have helmets and pads. And
it's interesting because you don't look at basketball being that way, but week after week after week, and they play a hell of a lot more games than football.
Oh, the joint.
How do you do it? Like I don't I'm not athletic at all. I don't, not at all. And I have trouble getting off the couch.
Hey, but you can float.
I'm sure of it. I excel at that.
Synchronized swimming's for you, baby.
But I think they, like Favre or whoever, like when you're 50 and you're getting off the couch, like constantly getting your ass kicked like that. Oh man.
How about this? So years ago, Dallas's quarterback of age old.
Of who?
Dallas.
Yeah.
The great.
Oh yeah. He's the announcer now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why can't I think of his name?
Yeah, this one's for you.
God. It'll come to me.
So Irving was his receiver.
Troy Aikman.
Yep. So Troy Aikman.
God, I took a right. I went the long way. I could have went direct, but I did. I went
a good
around.
Announcer too, by the way, right? He seems sharp. Maybe not.
I mean, yeah, he's good.
He's good enough. He makes it in the big league. So we're at the Metrodome.
You know Dennis Miller.
Right. He actually,
remember that train wreck?
The comedian who goes, yeah. So one of their players has a knee or needed IV. I can't remember. You know, sometimes they get so dehydrated, they run them up the locker room, they stick an IV in their arm, they hydrate them and send them back out. So I don't remember if he had an IV, but there was a knee thing too, because they said, ice down this guy's knee. And I'm like, I'm a clubby. So I said, yeah, okay. You know, because the thing is, never say no in life, right?
Right.
So he said, stick a roll under his knee. You don't want to have it straight when you ice it. So I put a roll under his knee. I put an ice bag on and I put the shrink wrap around it. And then we needed X-rays, so there was an injury. So they said, stay here until the X-rays get back, and then have a cart ready. And if he's good to go, bring him back to the field. I said, okay. We had 2 carts on the field, and so, but the Cowboys didn't know that. So now Aikman gets a concussion. It was his 7th one.
Jesus.
And I'm walking out of the locker room finally because they gave me, go back to the field. The player didn't go back. I was just going up by myself. He was down he was out. And so I meet Troy in the doorway. Hey, Troy. He's just staring at me like, and he's like a dog, the bobblehead dog in the thing.
Really?
And his head's swinging around in a circle, and he's like, hi. So I step back, and they go in, and they grab us. They're saying, what city we in? He didn't know. Who we playing? Didn't know. What's the score? Didn't know. Didn't know a thing.
No shit.
That was the end of his career because they said no more. Because now you think about CTE, the brain injury, and so I'm like, this poor man. How is he even alive? 7 concussions. He had multiple in a year. How many do you have that 1 year? Just tons.
Well, and I think that goes back to the whole thing. Like these guys are playing at another level, but I mean, like you get a kid who has a concussion, they damn near take him out for the year.
Right.
Where this guy's got 7.
And they put him back in. That was it, though. I think that was the end of his career at that time.
Have you watched that Aaron Hernandez documentary?
Oh, that was going to be painful.
Holy CTE.
So I was standing on the sidelines. Now talking to the concussion. They have a concussion doctor, and they have a red hat. And she's a big-time neurologist at HCMC, fantastic woman. They've given them the power now to stop the game. They have a button that they can push, and that's it. The play dies right then. It's over. The play has to stop, and they can get that guy out. So they just did that maybe a year or 2 ago. They gave him that. I think a year.
Have they ever used it?
Not yet. But I talked to her about that a lot, and I said, tell me more about CT because she's a big one researching it. And so here's one that you'll find fascinating. So do you know, especially being in audio, and I love wearing my Bose headphones all day long.
Oh, yeah.
And I listen to music. I try not to be loud, but I like music, and I'm somewhat of a musician. And so I just really dig it, right?
Right.
So do you know that low-end sounds and loud volume creates as much brain damage, CTE, as a concussion?
Really?
Research has shown it. So I said, there are some studies that John Hopkins or someone, she said, did it. So I said, whoa, wait a minute. I've had 28 years on the sidelines because the crowd noise and at the Metrodome, I said, my brain must be the size of a walnut so do you realize season ticket holders should be wearing earplugs? They're
Really?
experiencing as much CTE damage over the years as if they're having concussions. Google that. You'll find it fascinating.
Wow.
So I'm like, that's scary. So now I noticed, I talked to Chris Larson, all the orthopedics and the physicians on the sidelines, and I said, do you know that? And they're like, wow. So they all wear earplugs anyway, and they wear that the curly Secret Service thing because then they can called in. But so they have one earplug with that, but they all wear earplugs. If they don't have that in, they all have it now. But if they don't, they have that in one ear and they wear earplug because there's a real phenomena that is being overlooked. That crowd noise and then music that's played, but low end actually does more CTE damage at a high volume.
Makes sense.
It was counterintuitive to me. I would
never
blew my
have
mind
thought of that.
So I as older I get, more sensitive I get. The crowd noise just hurts. And some stadiums are worse. Like Arizona's really hurts me because they have a steel roof, and it just the shrillness of it. And
how's the sound at US Bank now?
Really loud.
Yeah.
And I've been to all the stadiums now, and in all the new ones, and Seattle is pretty loud for an open air, and the new Atlanta Stadium, the Mercedes-Benz there, is pretty loud. They all say it. Arrowhead has this thing that says, a sign when you come out of the locker room. It says, we're the world's loudest stadium, to intimidate the players, and at 117 or whatever decibels. And theirs isn't that loud. It's loud. All stadiums are loud, but ours is really loud. Our new stadium is as loud as, if not louder than, any stadium in the country.
Damn.
So I'm saying, man, that's a weird phenomenon about thinking about earplugs. So I try to wear them now.
Well, on top of that, the players who are on the field, and
that's what I said.
They don't even wear them.
Well, here's what I said to her. I said, wow, we had a playoff game once, and I don't remember I think it might have been Favre. It was when Favre was here. And see those orange speakers in the helmet?
Mm-hmm.
They're loud. They're so loud that you can hear them from the sidelines.
Oh, really?
And Dennis, the quarterback wanted 2. So he had 4 of those in his helmet. We really heard it from the sidelines. I said, and now think about they're always really loud, because I'll do sound checks on them. We'll walk the field because we don't have dropout zones, or like the.
Oh yeah, right.
There's a defensive player, and then the offensive player that gets to have it, so they get to choose. So it's a quarterback and usually a linebacker, and so they're so loud. I said, those guys, and then when they did 4 speakers, those guys who in those positions, like a quarterback, his whole career he's got speakers in. He's literally getting. I said to her, so he's literally getting CTE from that as much as concussions? And she said, yes, probably.
Wow.
So there's another odd phenomena that has probably never be spoken of, because that's controversial.
More here by accident than most places by design.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Wow. I haven't been to the stadium for a football game yet. I've been there for baseball and whatever, but I'm excited to check it out. But I guess I wouldn't even think of that. But now I'm kind of curious too to see. I'm going to watch for the person in the red hat to push that button.
I don't think,
it would be pretty interesting.
They're really watching, because it's their responsibility. And they literally come out of brain surgery. And I ask her, I'd say, so we get rotating ones. They work all week, and then they do this in a game day. It's just a demanding schedule. So they almost do it out of a altruistic kind of a thing and curiosity. But like orthopedics, like working with them, because the elite athletes are really fun examples for them and studies for them. Like Chris Larson's just phenomenal. We have the most phenomenal people as orthopedics.
Oh, I bet.
And Chris Coetzee, he's a South African guy whose specialty is hand and foot, and Larson's hip and knee, I think. But so
I'm sure they get the best of the best. Come on.
You know what's interesting about that? Remember, we had the guys from TRIA, and now we have the guys from TCO, Twin Cities.
The in-house.
And the last guys, and I said, so you're a brand new surgeon. You're gonna give a guy, cut into his knee, cut into his hip, do a shoulder, do whatever.
Yeah.
You're just out of school. I mean, what's that feel like?
Do you have to disclose that?
Yeah, exactly.
You're my first.
And I go, what started the story is when I had my bicep screwed back into my radius, I watched the surgery because they can put a TV screen in front of you. And I said, the only thing I don't know if I can handle is.
You were awake?
Yeah, when you cut the skin, when you do the incision, or when you drill into my bone, because they take a cordless drill and they just drill into your bone. And it's a big hole. It's like a 1/2-inch hole. I said, if I can't handle it, can you just knock me out? And they said, yeah, we'll have these syringes loaded up and and you'll be out. I said, okay. So at the end of the surgery, the guy goes, actually, there was a rep in the room. This is why they shouldn't let you be awake. There was a medical device rep in the surgical room. It was down at TRIA on 494. And they have this device because they drill a hole and then they suture this clear anchor that's made out of protein that dissolves into your bone replaces it, and then this attachment, they have to get into your marrow so there's blood to reattach. Then it grows back on, and that's the end of it. And so I got done with the surgery, but this guy's in there and he's trying to screw this thing in, and it's just not working. So he gives it to the medical device guy, and I'm watching the medical device guy.
Is he like you and I when we're working on something and it won't work? He's like, "Fuck, come on, piece of shit."
Yeah, pretty much.
Slamming the tools down.
And so, well, he doesn't do that, but he had cool, calm, but his hands are shaking and his blood vessels are bulging. He gives it back to the guy, and the guy's standing there with it, and he goes, "Well, it usually works." And I said, and he goes, "Give me this," and he kicks a regular Phillips screwdriver, and it squeaks, and I said, "That's a good sound, right?" And he goes, "Yeah, I don't want to round out the hole. If that device rounded out my hole, I wouldn't get that anchor attached, right?" And so, but I said to him at the end, he goes, "How do you feel?" I said, "Appreciative." He said, "Really? Why?"
I feel like I don't want to invest in that equipment company.
Yeah, because I said, I think I have one of the best guys in the Twin Cities. He said, "I'm not the best in the Twin Cities. I'm one of the best in the world."
Wow.
And so I told the guy, the orthopedic that was later on the sidelines, I told him that story. And he goes, yeah, we all do. We all think we're the best in the world. I said, "Is that the confidence that gets you into in and out of these surgeries?" He said, "Yeah, maybe." But he said, I said, "You really feel that? You really feel you're the best of the best?" And he goes, "Yeah." So there's a mentality amongst those orthopedics. The fascinating thing about that, when they screwed that tendon, it was all crooked and
keep
spun
going
around.
Back to it.
And it was sticking up. There was a big bump right in the crease of my elbow here. And it was
you feel it when you bent the elbow? Like when you bent your arm?
Yeah, it was a big knob. Well, they keep you immobilized forever before they let you move just 5 degrees. But I was talking to an orthopedic from the Arizona Cardinals a year later. And I said, "Man, it's amazing." I said, that thing reattaches. He said, "You want to hear something really amazing?" Because I said, "You guys are like carpenters. You just kind of get it in place and get out, and then the body just takes over." And he goes, "Yeah, exactly." This thing, I said, I watched the tendon. It was all twisted up because he didn't have the turns right, when he started screwing it in. It's not like you can back it out. And
it's like when you're wrapping Teflon tape on a fitting.
Yep. So it's the tendon's kind of twisted. And he said, "You know what would be amazing?" He said, "In 3 to 5 years, if I took that and x-rayed that attachment after the fact, it will straighten out, and I would not be able to tell the original attachment before the rupture until what my body did." So your DNA, if you don't believe in amazing miracles, the DNA straightened the tendon out, and that knob went away, and it went down to its original flush attachment. And he said, "So yeah, we just get it in there."
Have you seen it since?
This?
Yeah.
No, it's just like this one.
No, but I mean, have you had it X-rayed or MRI'd?
No. But he said that's the phenomena of your body's healing abilities. Yeah, I was blown away. So it's like they really are kind of like carpenters. You keep it clean, don't let it get infected, get it close, let the blood happen, and then let's just reattach, and it just boom.
I got into my mom's got COPD really bad, I got into the stem cell stuff for a while because I was like, I'll pay for it. Let's do it. And when I don't know anything, but the hear how that stem cell process works, and there's some real believers out there, like it works for some people.
Some people it does, some it does. So tell us more.
Well, it's just more or less the one company I talked to, because I had a guy come in here who must smoke a carton of cigarettes a day, and he's like, my buddy had COPD real bad, or his mom, and she went to Arizona to the lung center or whatever. Lung Institute, and they did it, and they take your blood out and they spin it and they get all of the stem cells out of it. They put it back in, and it goes in and finds the problem and takes care of it. So I was like, whatever, we'll fly you out there, and we were ready to go like twice, but she got sick and we couldn't fly. And then I found because this guy said that his mom or whoever had gone in for the stem cell and was in a wheelchair on oxygen and left on her own feet with no oxygen. So it was like, and I don't know now, knowing what I know, that it could have been that instantaneous. But so then I found here locally, the Lung Institute or something, they use baby umbilical stem cells, which are fresh, have all the goods in them, and they use that. So then I started thinking, well, shit, do we want to use these old tired cells and spin them, or do we want these new baby cells and spin those? But they've gotten great results. They've had great results, and
do they have test results that compare the two?
Between no, I didn't dig that far into it.
They're very controversial about the umbilical one.
Well, yeah, I could imagine, but I know Mel Gibson was on Joe Rogan's podcast, and he has his dad down in Mexico or something, and he gets it for his knee, and it's perfect. Like, it went back to new. So you hear all different versions of it,
yeah,
and it's still very controversial any way you look at it.
Well, not the controversial is the extraction, the harvesting, but the results. Because I have a buddy that had his wife, and he did it on his knees, and they had no effect. He went to Mexico. He did all the greatest methods, and there was no benefit. So it's like he had all the hope. The sad thing is that like anyone, we lean towards optimism,
right?
And then we get disappointed. So he was like, it didn't work for my wife. We had all our hopes up. That was the hardest. Is my emotional went bam. And so, but you got to try it.
Well, and
right?
what happened with my mom is it was COPD, and it was pneumonia, and it was this, and you can't have any other ailment. It has to be able to focus on that one. Otherwise, it's going to go fix the pneumonia, or it's going to go fix the whatever.
Interesting.
So you want it, and this is my take. I mean, you probably have medical professionals out there that could break this down to where it makes more sense and is more backed up with data. I'm going off of my research that I did, which was really a few phone calls and a little internet searching, but it's really fascinating, and it really seems to help these people, because this COPD thing is ridiculous, and it really takes them down. And she's, I think, past the point of trying to, stem cell repair it.
Yeah.
So we've just accepted that, but it's fascinating. I think I would try it if I had something that I think it could benefit.
Yeah, why not, right?
Because it really, and it's, I don't know, the one in Arizona was like $8,000, and the one local here was like $12,000.
Oh.
And it's not a one and done. There's going to be more treatments and whatnot. So, but it's an ongoing thing, and I think they're going to do more with it. It's fascinating. But
my mother-in-law died of COPD, and it's a terrible way to go. Because everything, their brain's perfectly, their heart is in perfect condition, and there's those lungs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's twofold, and this gets back to what we talked about earlier, is that, my dad died at 58, but he, poured gravy on his gravy and chased it with a cigarette. I mean, he's like, if I can't live the way I want to live, then I'm leaving,
Yeah.
and he died. And my mom, that H1N1 virus got her when she was in Texas, and she's been downhill ever since. And it's almost like, my dad dying so fast like that, it was a blessing, where she's just suffering.
I hear you.
And it's not even bad yet. She has a lot of other stuff with fluctuation with this, that, and the other thing, and she's going to totally chew my ass for bringing this up. But
did she stop smoking?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Well, good and bad.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and
my mother-in-law, they said they shouldn't even told her to stop because it was too late already.
Well, I think she did that part of it on her own.
Okay.
And she may, delve into an e-cigarette now and again. I don't know. I don't care. I don't want to know.
Yeah.
Do what you want to do to enjoy your life while you
How
have
old is
it.
She?
72.
Mm.
But she, and that's my whole thing. I'm like, do what you can do to enjoy life right now. Don't, well, we need to worry about 5 years from now. And I'm like, no, let's worry about the end of this month. Because there's been times where her oxygen levels and her blood levels get so low that you're like, she's not going to make it through the week.
Yeah.
And she's worried about how she's going to pay for her whatever. And I'm like, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Let's worry about right now. Where she's got a good friend, obviously family friend that we've grown up with. And her husband passed away a couple of years ago. And boom, all of a sudden I see her one day at my mom's, and the next day, a couple of weeks later, I'm talking to my mom. She's in a home, Alzheimer's. She can't trust herself by herself anymore.
Wow.
And it's like, holy shit.
Yep.
You got to watch out for this stuff. And I don't, I don't want to get into how this is all happening now, and it didn't happen as much before. that's a whole nother show. But it's just like, every day you got to, like you said, you got to enjoy every day, every moment for what it is. Cause that could be it. It could be, whatever. You walk out, you get hit by a bus, boom. But some of the technology, some of the advancements they're making is really moving us in the right direction. But there's just like, it's just like that first person who bought a Prius. It was really expensive and they look stupid as hell, but you're saving the environment. Somebody has to do it. Somebody has to take that first step, and it's the stem cell, it's the whatever to try and to help people live a longer, happier life. And I see what's happening to my mom and the treatment. They do what they could do. They have all these steroids and whatever and juice her up. And at times, and actually right now, my sister lives right near her. And my sister's like, she's doing better than she has in a really long time. Well, of course, we can't go see her. We can't do anything because she's in a retirement community where they have it on lockdown. But it's really been an interesting thing to see how much, and it's only going to get worse. But that's the common theme that I hear from everybody, that COPD is a bad way to go, bad ending.
My mother-in-law said there's that commercial where they have an elephant standing on the chest.
Yeah.
She said that is the best representation. You just can't breathe.
Oh,
and
God.
what's sad is
well, and that's like how many, like if you surveyed 1,000 people, 995 of them are going to say, I don't want to suffocate. I don't want to drown.
Right.
I don't want to run out of air.
Yeah.
Because that's like the worst thing that could happen.
The worst thing. It's a psycho. Because I noticed that when she had anxiety, her COPD effects were worse and more dramatic.
Oh, I'm
when
sure.
She was doing what she wanted, like she loved a garage sale. When she was on garage sale, the woman acted like she hardly had it. But as soon as she was somewhere and she just was in her head, she was panic attacking.
Oh, that totally. That's what my mom is. My mom is like, she'll come to visit me, but then she'll get there and she'll just be panicked that she's not gonna be able to breathe.
Right.
So she'll just go back home.
Yep.
She'll be like, I just can't, I couldn't get out of the car because it's just too much. And I totally get it. Like we often don't realize the basic things like breathing.
Exactly.
Like saliva in your mouth, like being able to hear, like these things that you just take as, well, it's always going to be this way. It's normal. Well, my neighbor where I live, he's got COPD, never smoked a day in his life. He's got it.
How does that happen?
I don't know. I don't know him well enough to be, eventually, I would like to ask, but I don't know well enough. That's pretty private information, I would think.
We're going to Google that one.
Yeah, well, and it's possible. I mean, it happens. But anyway, hey, we got to wrap this thing up, man.
Yep.
You can't stay all day. We got to get back to normal life.
Exactly.
So anyway,
I had to quickly get back and shelter myself.
Yeah, exactly. Get back on lockdown. So anyway, we will definitely pick this up again somewhere down the road. We can't thank Terry enough for the time. Everybody needs to go out and tell a friend about the podcast during the pandemic. The one thing you can share is the podcast. Pass it along to a friend. Give us a review. Subscribe. Tell all your friends how amazing it is. And we'll catch up with you on the next episode. Everyone take care. Have a great week. Thanks again, Terry, for coming in. You can say bye.
Thank you.
That's it. That's the end.
That's a wrap.
Read the shtick.
That's a wrap for today's episode. Don't forget to subscribe and tell all your friends. If you'd like to reach out, you can use the studio line at 612-504-6500 or by email, thedkprojectpodcast@gmail.com. And of course, there's always social media at the DK Project Podcast. Thanks for tuning in.